as you all probably realize, this is a panel about cosplay. We'll probably talk about a lot of small tricks and things that I've learned along the way. I'll give you a little bit about my background and everything. We'll talk about stories, and that part, can be like an open discussion. I would love to hear from you guys as well. If y'all have stories about y'all's cosplay adventures, that would be fun. And then if we have time at the end, we can do like a Q&A kind of thing. So I guess we will get started. So my name is Alex. In the fandom, I am known as Avina Vale. I have been cosplaying for about 2 to 3 years, but I've always loved to dress up. I've always been one of those like closet cosplayers, and then about 2 or 3 years ago, I went to my very first convention, which was actually this first convention of Night by Nights. And it was one of the greatest experiences ever. And ever since then, I was completely hooked on conventions and costume contests, and I just was thrown into this whole other world, and it was amazing. I had never done anything like that, and right then, that day, I was convinced just by people walking around, oh, you should enter the contest later. And I was like, really? I don't know. You think so? So of course I ended up doing that, and I'm so glad I did. I feel like that really got me to be open and cosplay more, and be able to experience that kind of community, and I loved it. Let's see what else. So I don't know if a lot of you have ever come across a lot of these problems, but over the years, I learned a lot by making a lot of mistakes, by messing up a lot, and I really mean like a lot. I've probably spent so much time and money on outfits that, were just completely tossed because it was ending up being a learning experience. So hopefully you guys come away from this feeling a little bit more confident, in making your own outfits. I can definitely say now, after those 2 years, that I feel very confident in sewing, but there's still a lot of stuff that I wish, that I'm still wanting to learn. Like, I have not even tried armor making or anything like that. I look at this guy over here and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I see we have another Trixie cosplay over here. It's pretty awesome. I love that. All right. So I guess some of the things that I've learned is when you're when I was first starting out, I was not very open to things like, oh, well, I'm probably never going to wear a wig. I don't really have to learn about that. And, I don't really need to know how to do all the stitches on my sewing machine. I'm just going to use this for, basic stuff. And now here I am, all dressed up in that. And I think one of the first things that really helped me was to sit down and research, sit down and learn, sit down and play with all the different tension settings and sewing settings on the machine. Sit down and look at 100 wig tutorials or dress tutorials or whatever it is you guys may be making. Things like that. Watching a bunch of tutorials is really how I learned. And also just, reading a lot more, knowing the knowledge behind that. People would say things like, always use this kind of fabric, always use this kind of coloring, and I would never actually know why. I would never actually know why I'm only using cotton fabric, or why I'm only using fabric paint and not acrylic. And I learned a lot of that through trial and error. But I wish someone had told me back then, really research and really do your homework on that. Let's see here. I feel like another thing I really learned that really helped me take my skills to that next, level, that helped me not to feel like such a beginner, was at the very beginning, I was really intimidated. I don't know about you guys, if you guys have ever been super intimidated to do this one particular thing. I was really intimidated to do simple things on outfits like sew a zipper. Something that simple made me feel like, well, I can't cosplay that outfit. I have to do that for that outfit, and I don't really know how to do that. I made a list of all the things that could have possibly intimidated me back then. And it's little things like sewing a zipper, dyeing fabric, all of that stuff. And went through every single one, almost expecting to mess up, not getting so invested in it, hoping it turns out right. It's actually when I started thinking, it's okay, you're going to mess this up, you just need to try it once, that I started doing decent work. I guess it's kind of weird the way that works out, but anyways, I feel like making that list of fears, really helped me to get to that other level, I don't know if there's certain things you guys are like, well, I don't really know how to do that, but I can almost say I know how to do it now because I messed it up once and then got it right after that, and that really helped me. What else? Tips and tricks. I learned that also, when you're doing measurements, you want to be as accurate as possible. And a lot of you are probably thinking, well, duh. But something I would do a lot that would basically ruin a lot of pieces is I would give myself so much allowance, so much like seam allowance, so much extra inches, thinking, okay, I need to make sure I have enough, make sure it's, it's not too small, that it would end up being too big, and the pinning it and shrinking it would actually make it look a lot worse than it could have come out, if it were just accurate. So what I had to start doing was, taking just the measurements of what I needed, the measurements of my waist and my height and all of that, doing that plus 1 inch and no more. Like, I would do that plus 5 inches, just so scared that my seams were going to be like that big, which, looking back, I'm just like, ridiculous. How? Like, how did I ever think that? And, making those measurements accurate was a big, turning point. After that, a lot of things just felt so much simpler, And I feel like that really helped a lot of outfits look more professional without really having to do more steps, you know what I mean? Let's see. Another thing I feel like would really have helped me back then getting to that next level is asking for help. And when I say that, a lot of people would tell me, like, I would go to panels just like this when I was that starter, when I was that beginner level, and I would see these people talking about all this different stuff that I'm now just like dreamy-eyed, like, oh, I'm gonna do that as soon as I get home this weekend. And then, I get home and it's just me in my apartment with my computer, and I have no one to talk to. And I remember them saying in these panels, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out, to really look at these tutorials, to really ask questions and stuff like that. I really wish someone had just like taken me back then and just said, ask for help. Not just don't be afraid, but like, no, seriously, ask for help. And I feel like that face-to-face thing, that's how I learn. I know that a lot of people learn differently. Some people can look at a tutorial and just be like, okay, I got it. But that face-to-face thing would have really helped me a lot. You know, I wish I had someone that I could just go up to and be like, can you show me how to hem this skirt? Because I am not getting this at all. It's simple things like that, you know, take away a lot of that negative emotion, that, you know, whole, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this, what am I doing? That I'm sure a lot of us have felt time to time. Let me go ahead and take this off. Just because, watch, 5 minutes from now, I'm going to be like, it's too cold. All right. So, a lot of that asking for help, I didn't do for a couple reasons. And one of those was I didn't really know anyone that I had met cosplay. Like, I assumed a lot of people I knew didn't cosplay. I assumed I only met those people here at conventions and that sort of thing. And I'm finding out, especially now that I'm older, a lot more people cosplay, and you may, like, it may just be your buddy at work or your friend at school, and you may not even know it, or even if you do, you know, use that person, go to that person and just be like, hey, do you know how to do this? Because I could definitely use some help. And, you know, stuff like that. Stuff I wish I had done at that beginner level. I feel like it would have just skyrocketed things a lot more. But, you know, it's a learning experience. What else is? Let's see. A lot of tutorials would tell me things like, use this specific product from Michael's or Joann's or, you know, whatever it is. And when I was first starting out, I was so afraid to do anything other than exactly what that had said, what that tutorial had told me, that, you know, I would almost not do an outfit just because I couldn't find this one particular brand of fabric paint, you know, or this one particular type of fabric. And now looking back, I'm just like, it really, there are some things that matters and there are some things it doesn't. And things like the stuff I was working on, like this one year, I was painting stars on a cake, and everything I read kept saying, you know, use this this weird French name that I can't think of, this weird brand of fabric paint. That's the only thing that'll really work with what you're doing. And that was when I was just like, I'm going to use acrylic paint, like just plain craft paint. And it actually turned out a little brighter. And I'm not saying acrylic paint is better than fabric paint. There are like pros and cons and stuff, but it was when I finally decided I'm just going to use what I have. I'm just going to use what I can, that I realized there are some things I need to look into. There are some things that I need to have that confidence to just dive in and use it. And I feel like that was another one of those little tiny details. It's always those little tiny details that made your costume look, you know, super, super professional, or look like it's your very, very first costume. And a lot of those details had to do with painting fabric, with the way you would hem fabric, which, you know, there's different ways to do that, but it's such a simple thing that, you know, I couldn't believe I was freaking out over it back then. And what else? It's just those little details. If a lot of you don't have that person, you know, that person that you know that cosplays, or that person that you know that does this craft, what I found helpful was to ask, like message someone. A lot of the cosplay blogs and a lot of the, you know, the people I would follow and the people who would post all of these tutorials that I was learning from, you know, I started messaging. I was like, well, you know, I have this problem. I'm not actually sure if this is the amount of fabric I need, or I'm not actually sure what you mean by cutting on the fold, things like that. And, you know, it's that reaching out that really, like, it's sometimes even just asking the question. In the action of asking the question, it's like, oh, I know the answer to that. But I had to ask the question to get it. You know, that kind of thing. Let's see, what else? So, one of the things that I felt really got me back then, like when I started to get a little more confident, like, okay, I'm not just a beginner anymore, I can do this. One of the biggest things that got me was circle skirts, which is a really commonly used one in a lot of different outfits. Any kind of like bottom of the skirt that you have to hem. Because there was a curved edge, I could not, for the life of me, figure out how to do that. You know, I would read all these tutorials saying you have to stitch along the edge and then fold it over and iron it, or all these tutorials saying you have to, you know, just fold it over and use your pins to kind of pucker it through your sewing machine. All these different things that I had no idea what they meant. Even just watching them, I was still so confused. And so a lot of my first outfits were just left unfinished. And even though I had worked so hard and made like this beautiful design and everything, I would just get so disheartened because I would see like that unfinished edge and be like, how do I do that? Like, how am I supposed to do that? I finally realized for circle skirts, the thing that really clicked with me was the very first tutorial I had read, and it was so confusing, but after looking at everything, I realized that was probably the easiest thing I could have done, is along the edge, you know, I don't know if you guys have done this or if you've seen this, where they just sew just a straight, like it's not folded over or anything, but it's just a straight stitch, like half an inch away from the edge of the skirt, from the edge of the fabric. And then, using that, you fold it over, you iron that over. It makes it to where that stitch, it stays that way. Like, it makes it easier to sew the second stitch, which is the other, you know, half of an inch. You would sew that right on top of that, where that met the fabric. And it would come out monumentally better. Ever since then, that's pretty much the way I finish skirts and dresses and bosses and things like that have that curved edge. But something I feel like was really, really cool looking was, you know how, I don't know if you guys have seen this either, but when you have like that tulle material, when it's that kind of sheer fabric, when it's that chiffon or whatever it may be that you're using, to do that method, it doesn't work exactly the same. Like, you can still do that, but it would not look as airy and as light as that material is supposed to be. And a lot of people I've seen, just still live that material unfinished, and it works, especially if it's, under the skirt and you have the actual fabric on top of it or what have you. But that kind of fishing line technique, where the fabric is just, where you're sewing, you're basically curling it over this one, like fishing wire type of thread. It makes it so curly and so just like, so fluffy. And that was the one thing that's probably the last thing I learned, was how to do those. And it was the hardest thing to learn. I could not understand how to do that. I had, looked at all these different things. I had tried and tried and tried to learn. And, I probably messed up my sewing machine quite a few times. But those two things, I think, definitely just saved me when it came to making a lot of these costumes. Was just something as simple as really honing in on finishing those edges. I feel like that's something that takes your costume from looking, very, very homemade to something you can enter in a contest. And, it's like I said, it's little details. It's the very little details in your costume that I think really, really sell it, but also really, really make it look all that more professional and really take that to the next level. Let's see. When I finally got the confidence, when I finally felt like, okay, I know how to do this, I can pretty much say that my sewing skills have improved a lot. I started wanting to go out to more conventions and more panels and more contests and things of that nature. And I realized very quickly, my excitement, like on the inside, I am so excited and just so ready to explode just thinking about that kind of stuff. But on the outside, it doesn't quite translate the same. You think you look good. You think like you're smiling to the camera and you look pretty good, when really, you don't realize you're just like so tensed up and so smiling so hard you can't even really distinguish your facial expressions and things like that. And I did a lot of that at first. I did a lot of, very obviously not knowing how to pose for that kind of stuff. And so I would look at all these pictures. I would look at all these, professionally done photo shoots of all these beautiful people, these like supermodel cosplayers. I'd be like, okay, I just need to do that pose. I just need to angle myself that way. I just need to make that facial expression. And it turned out almost just as bad. And so I'm sitting here thinking, what is wrong? Like, am I not made for cosplay? What's going on here? Someone finally told me, dude, you have to look at yourself. You have to not just think that facial expression or that pose or whatever. Go in front of a mirror and look at how you look before you take your pictures. The very second I did that, it was so natural. Like, I'm over here standing in my room or in my bathroom, just all dressed up in my outfit, in just the privacy of my own home, just going at it, making all these poses, almost prancing around the room, going crazy, making sure that I have got this character down, whoever it may have been. And I think really looking at yourself and not just looking at the different poses and stuff that you wanted to do, really taking that time in front of the mirror really helps you to be photo ready. Really helps you when there's someone in the hallway like, hey, can I take your picture real quick? And you can can actually, you know, have a decent, a really good looking picture instead of one of those like, oh sure, last minute hallway pictures. I know I've had quite a bit of those. But I feel like that's one of those, another one of those little things that can really save you or break you or whatever. And let's see a lot of oh my goodness, sorry. I think a lot of these small details, a lot of these very tiny tricks and everything that I learned through just doing, just going out there, experiencing it. You know, go ahead and buy this wig and don't be afraid when it messes up, or go ahead and get all of this fabric for this outfit and it's okay if you ended up only needing 2 yards instead of like 6. I think finally letting go of that fear of, okay, what exactly am I going to do? What happens if I mess this up? Really gave me such a freedom to just go for it. And I think that really helped me a lot, because when I was able to just go for it without worrying about anything, that's when I would really learn things. That's when I would kind of discover this whole new way of sewing, or, you know, connecting these pieces, or, you know, reading these patterns, or whatever it may be that you're trying to do. But I feel like a lot of the big things that really helped me take my stuff to that next level was really honing in on those details, really getting over that intimidation, that fear, any kind of those negative things, and really making a connection with someone, really asking for help or messaging for help or whatever it is that you're able to do. All of those things I feel like really helped me. And I do have a few stories of some of these learning experiences. Some of them are funny, some of them are just kind of cool. But I think my favorite one, the one I'll start with, is my very first cosplay contest. I don't know who was here the very first year that Nightmare Nights was open.
When was that?
It was, I think, 2 years ago. It was their very first one. I got convinced, like, that day, that Friday, to enter the contest, and I had no intention of doing that. I went, this was my first convention, this was my first outfit I had, and I was Twilight Sparkle, dressed as Starswirl the Bearded. And I was so proud of this. I mean, looking back, I realized how much more I've learned, but looking back at this outfit, I was so proud and so happy to wear this very obviously homemade little purple dress with, you know, this cape with little painted acrylic stars on it, and this little hat with little bells on it. You know, I would just like almost cry with happiness every time I would walk through these hallways and someone goes up to me and says, "Now you even got the bells right." Like, I just freaked out. It was awesome. But anyways, I entered this contest not knowing how these things go. And so when they're telling us, when we're setting up, you know, okay, you have like a minute on stage to do your little performance, to walk around, to, you know, do whatever it is you need to do, and then you exit this way. I kept thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I need to think of something to do. I don't want to just like get up on stage and then immediately walk off. What am I going to do? And so I'm sitting here the first like 30 minutes before the contest, and I'm trying to remember that episode, and I'm thinking of all these different little things that I can do when I get on stage. And the whole time, my body is physically shaking with excitement. Like, I am just trembling because I am so excited to do this. And I have all these little things in my mind. I even have like a few things I could say. I have all this stuff planned. And when I get up there, like as I'm walking up the steps of the stage, I had just so much adrenaline. My face was locked. And I just mean like physically locked. I could not do anything else in this like ear-to-ear grin. And I couldn't breathe. I just felt myself not breathing. And I panicked in that very split second. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? Do something. And the most I could manage was I just put my arms out like this and turned around so people could actually see the back of my cape. Turned back around and just walked off stage very quickly. And as soon as I went to my friends after the fact, they were like, you did so great, that was awesome. I couldn't believe what they were saying because in my head, I had this epic like freak out happening. Whereas apparently to the audience, it looked like I just got up there, smiled, did a little spin and walked off. I was so like just red because I couldn't believe I had all this plan and I just got so excited I couldn't do anything else. And I ended up actually winning like the People's Choice Award that year for best reaction from the crowd or whatever it was, which made me really, really happy. It was one of the most exciting cosplay moments, and it was from then on I realized this is definitely something I want to do, something I love. And I just think it was so funny though that nobody really saw from the audience that in my head I was freaking out. I couldn't like move, I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm blowing it. I feel like that was just really the contrast between what was going on in here and what was actually happening. And I always think back to that. When I'm working on something and I need to get motivated to not procrastinate on it, I always think back to that moment. And how fun, how exciting it was. That kind of thing. If anybody else has a cosplay story that they want to share, just, go for it. Just like raise your hand or whatever, by the way. It doesn't have to just be me telling you stuff I did. So, I guess go for it. No, you just go for it.
Alright, so I'm having an adventure in cosplay right now. This is the first time I've ever cosplayed. In fact, the song about my first panels. This is the first time people are seeing this really at a convention.
Awesome.
This is my best sunset ceremony.
I definitely got it. I was going to say I really like your hair.
Thank you. The hair was definitely the best part. That's why it was done by someone else.
Honestly, I wish I could color my hair instead of wearing wigs. And I probably have a closet full of wigs by now, you guys. It's so ridiculous.
I knew the rest of school I bleached everything. I double bleached beard to finish on the first time.
Well, it looks pretty awesome. So glad. Anybody else? Anything? Any kind of... Yes.
Thank you. I've had so many compliments on this.
It really does.
It's amazing. 4 days ago when this was died, it was entirely red and not just orange. So that gets really fast.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about hair dye. It's especially like the colors I like. The colors like blue and purple and red. Those colors are always the quickest to go. They last about a week. But, joys of cosplay. All right, any other stories from anybody? I guess, have another story about that same Twilight costume. It's, how this convention is usually around Halloween. Well, at work, at the time, we were able to wear our costumes to work for the whole week of Halloween. So I thought, this is perfect. This is like the perfect test run to see how this costume really goes. And so I wore it to work, you know, as a cashier, just my little Starswirl bearded get up, and I was thinking to myself, nobody is going to know what this is. And I was completely right. A lot of people kept asking me what I was, and when I told them, you know, oh, well, it's from the show, My Little Pony, I would get such blank looks. You know, I would just get like, what? Or, wait, really? You know, a lot of people who maybe haven't seen it or just like don't know what this could possibly be from that show. And I'd have to go into this whole explanation. It's this character who's a unicorn, who's dressed as this other unicorn. And I finally, like halfway through the day, was just like, I'm a wizard. Yeah, yeah, thank you. And it was just so funny because I wasn't like discouraged. I kind of figured that would happen. But when I came here, when I wore that same outfit to the convention, so many people went nuts over it. So many people stopped me in the hallway like, that is so genius. And you know, that even got the bells right. And just like hearing that all 3 times really, really made up for that whole entire week. It was so awesome. But I just think it's kind of funny, the contrast. And, people did not get it. But it was still really fun to wear. You know, everybody still liked it, whether they got it or not. Any other cosplay stories? Blunders or successes?
I got one. So, first costume I ever did, group cosplay. I cannot emphasize enough how that helped, because I have complete stage fright. My hands are shaking now. One of my friends had done a few costumes. He decided he was going to do a Diamond Dog for DerpyCon South last year. Me and another friend said, hey, let's do it. We had an immense amount of fun, and now I have like 4 costumes a year later.
I wish I could have seen that. Diamond Dogs would have been really cool.
I have it upstairs. It is what I use when I can't afford to have wings in a crowd.
There you go. We all have those backup costumes. I know I have backup costumes in my car right now. So, awesome.
Another quick tip, test your costumes. I had so many straps rip off of this and another one of my costumes in the middle of a convention. There was nothing I could do to fix it. Test it before you leave home.
Definitely. That really helps. I can definitely tell you, every costume I tested was actually comfortable to wear. And even though nothing happened when I tested it, I wore it to the con with no problems. Every costume I didn't test had every problem you could imagine. Everything, you know, everything from it actually doesn't fit right to, oh, it turns out I'm pretty much held together by safety pins right now. You know, all of that good stuff. All of that fun cosplay stuff. So, I can tell you guys about this one time I tried to save my beautiful Rarity wig. And I really emphasize that word, tried, you know. One thing I learned like the first year was don't store your wigs just at the top of your closet until the next year's convention. At least get them out halfway, like a few months before, giving you time to either fix it or order a new one. Because what I did is, as soon as I was done with the convention, I had never even used a wig before, let alone bought wig heads or anything of that nature. I literally threw this thing in a bag, like in a grocery bag, thinking, okay, that'll protect it, right? And put it in my suitcase. And when I got home, you know, just kind of put it in my closet with the rest of my costume stuff. When I tried to wear it to the next pony convention I went to, I realized I really should have looked at this thing, you know, not a month before the convention. Because it just, I don't understand how at the time, because it was just in my closet the whole time, not moving. But it was so ratty and so tangled, and it looked more like a wig, a purple version of Merida's hair than anything Rarity would have put on her head. And I was so just like shocked, like how did this happen? And you know, looking at my other wigs, I realized I really probably should not have stored it that way. And anyway, so I start looking at all these different things online. What can I do to save this thing? Because I've only worn it once and it would really just be such a disaster to throw it away after one wear. And a lot of these people were saying, you know, just take your comb and take some conditioner and you're gonna have like a whole day to do this. You need to, you know, run it through the warm water in your bathtub. Like this is gonna take all day. This is a huge process. I followed this exactly. I tried to look at a lot of these different tutorials. I really, really tried hard to save this wig because, like I said, I was just so heartbroken that I only got to wear it once. And I'm over here, you know, very slowly with my comb, starting from the bottom, you know, combing all the way to the top, making sure to just pull out as little hair as possible. And I'm super impressed with how I'm doing. Like, it's actually starting to work. And then I realized the water it is in is purple. Like the water itself, this is a wig I bought. This wasn't like a wig that I had colored myself or anything like that. This was a wig I had ordered online. And I picked the wig up and it is almost like lavender, kind of light purple. Like the color had all just completely gone away. And I was so heartbroken because I worked so hard on like really detangling that wig. And I learned, you know, order quality wigs, first of all, and really, really store them properly. You know, now I have a bunch of, you know, wig heads all on this shelf in my apartment. And it probably looks kind of weird, but you know, gotta take care of them somehow. Any other blunders or successes or any cosplay stories or just anything you want to share? It doesn't have to be a story, I guess. Let's see, we still have like 15 minutes. What else? What else have I done?
You guys speak to how important it is to stay in character.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so develop a character and actually like role play with your friends a couple weeks before actually going on a costume. Because that could make it, because you can show up and be like, yeah, I'm kind of stuck with a little bit of it, yeah. Or you can actually be Starswirl and bearded, and people want to see that. So, like, we went as minions from Venture Brothers to Butterfly Guys that get killed all the time. And we refused to break character, and it made us, like, like people were demanding to take pictures with us and standing in line because we wouldn't break character. It's all about an extra mile.
Exactly. I love people who do that, people who are just so into their character. I actually met this one guy at Comic-Con who was dressed as Professor Snape. And a lot of the people I had taken pictures with that day, like I had stopped a lot of people and been like, can I take a picture? Your costume's so amazing. This one guy, just the hair and like he was really tall and the face, everything, not just the costume, but like this guy really, really looked like Alan Rickman. Like I swear he was right there in front of me. And so I had to get this picture, of course. I go up to this guy to take his picture. I'm like, can I get your picture? And he does it so perfectly. He just turns to me and gives me that look, you know, that look that Professor Snape would give you. And he's just like, I suppose. The way he did it, though, was so, like, I swear, Alan Rickman was right there in front of me. I almost freaked out because this guy was just acting so well. He was just really into this. And so I stepped back, trying to contain myself with my camera and everything. And he just does that defense pose with his wand. And oh my gosh, people went crazy. Other people stopped and were watching him just like, wow, like this guy. So definitely adds to your costume, that whole playing your character thing. Let's see, what else? I could tell you about this one time. I hate to admit this. I hate to even remember that this happened to me. But I was trying to make this dress. It was supposed to be for a Goldine cosplay, And I was so excited. I was like, I love this, humanizing things, like humanizing ponies and humanizing Pokemon. And I was so excited to do this. And I had gotten my fabric and I had sewn it. I had cut out all the pieces of my pattern, and it was like 5 pieces. It was, you know, all this different stuff, because it was supposed to be like a little cardigan type thing. And, you know, the edges were supposed to be kind of ruffly to do like the fins, and it was really cool looking, but I sewed all of these pieces together. And this was my first time making something like that, something that was a cover and not just like a blouse or something. And as soon as I had sewn like the 3 pieces together, I realized, what is off about this? I'm looking at this, trying to figure out where my 4th piece goes. I hold it up and I realize I have sewed, you know how you're supposed to sew the right sides together? I had done the opposite of that, to where the seams were on the completely other side of this fabric. And it was, like one side was white, one side actually had this like fish pattern. I was so upset at this. I couldn't believe I had gone that far. I would almost finish this whole thing until I realized I had done that. And that costume never saw the light of day. I might work on it again at some point if I can find that fabric again. It was one of those like thrift store finds. You know, I know we all try to save money when we're doing this. I usually go to like those scrap kind of places, get like 4 yards of fabric for $2. It's awesome. Any stories or even any questions? Like, I don't know if maybe someone has had trouble working with this or working with that. Go for it.
Okay, so I sort of threw this all out a little bit in the last minute after I heard that. And the biggest problem I had was trying to dye blue jeans arms. That was a terrible mistake. But have you worked with dye colors before?
I have. I actually, when I was making the cape for this, tried to dye a cape black and decided I'm just going to make a new cape because I had the same problem where I think it's, you know, you're dyeing a dark color.
I had some problems testing maybe some color over that much. So it actually turned out better than I expected.
It looks really good.
It's okay. Yeah, I guess.
But I mean, what I found when I'm working with dyeing fabrics is you always want to test it on, yeah, exactly, a piece of that fabric. Because a lot of the times I've tried to dye fabrics, it's always been black for some reason. But a lot of the times it either washes out like completely, like almost you can't even tell that I tried to dye this kind of thing, or it doesn't blend the way I wanted it to. And I've found if you're doing a certain material that's, you know, really thick and also really maybe dark colored, something that's not a pastel or not just a white fabric or whatever, dyeing it another dark color, or dyeing it another color in general, is gonna be really hard. It has to be super, super concentrated. So I think the best advice I could give you, again, other than just like researching and doing that tutorial lookup thing, is try your very hardest to find like those bleach jeans or something, you know, something, that jean material is just hard to dye, just so you know. That's.
Do you think it would be a bleach on? Because this was basically, this was what I had. I had basically like $10 to my name at the time. My paycheck until the day of the news, I'm sorry. Anyway, so we should say bleaching them out first and then trying to, using bleach and then trying to dye with that.
Especially if it, yeah, especially if it's like a pair of jeans that, you know, you don't really mind losing. I would definitely try to lighten the color a little bit before you try dyeing it, you know, a really dark color, or even just, you know, a really like solid color like orange. You know, I've tried that and it has worked a lot better, but like I said, it may not work for different materials. For jeans, I would definitely try it. Anybody else have questions or stories or anything at all? We have like 8 minutes left, I think.
I work on a lot of costumes for my sister because she travels around a lot. And one thing I can say is take a sewing kit with you.
Definitely.
And if you take nothing else, take a sewing kit with you. And make sure that you're happy with improvising because you're almost always going to leave something behind.
Exactly.
If you don't pack way ahead of time and pack for my sister calls it packing for the costumes, so you pack that and then you pack everything else. Make sure you're happy with either leaving something behind or improvising on the spot.
That is one of the best pieces of advice. That is something that, I mean, you guys should see me when I'm at home packing for these conventions. I'm like Twilight with her little checklist that I have to do. It's like this long scroll. Because I'm just like so paranoid, okay, I need safety pins, I need, all this different stuff to make sure I have with me on hand this whole time. And I remember one year I actually had a sewing kit that was in more of like a chest, like one of those little wooden chests, because that's just what I happened to have at the time. I realized how big a mistake that was because everything in that kit, and I happen to have something glittery in that kit, just mushed together. You could, like, I have this kit full of supplies that I can barely get anything out of. And so to that, I don't know if, I feel like if you're going to have your kit and have your supplies, what I do that really helped me to organize all of that is those little tiny containers, just those little tiny plastic containers. I have like one that holds safety pins, one that holds sewing needles, one that holds elastic, one that holds Velcro, one that holds tape, all that different kind of stuff. And you open it and it's like this little Tetris looking thing full of those little plastic kits. That's the best sewing kit I've been able to fashion for this type of thing, because I could not imagine not bringing a sewing kit. But, yeah. I have about 5 more minutes if anybody else has any.
Here's some more advice.
Yeah.
Just like the improvisation thing. Whenever you improvise, don't tell people you're improvising. Because we went to a costume or convention, we forgot our booties, all of us. So we just went to the grocery store, bought cheap little booties, put on. No, never brought it up. People seeing you don't know that. They don't know that you're improvising. It's really painful to hear cosplayers have this awesome costume and put it down. They're like, oh, everything's perfect except my boots, which I forgot. Don't tell the people that. I don't even know that. Own it.
That is so true. I'm actually super guilty of that. I was always so bad at that. I feel like a lot of us always have that one thing about our cosplays that we would change. Since we're the ones that made it, we're always going to be our hardest critic. And I know I'm pretty hard on myself when I'm making stuff like that. I'm always thinking, well, all of this is wrong with it. No one's really going to like this. And I'll go to a convention and nobody knows. Everyone will come up to me and be like, that is super awesome. And I'm just like, really? Okay, I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to roll with it. Like I meant to do this. But yeah, awesome.
If you've never done cosplay before and you're wanting to start, I mean, it may sound kind of weird, but do you think you should start simple or just like say, do like a lot of advanced planning and try to do something epic and then just kind of keep critiquing it, take a long time to do it, or should I just start simple and kind of work my way from there?
Well, I would tell you to start simple. I would tell anyone to start simple. Start with something you feel like you're going to be able to actually do.
Okay.
But I have to say, that's not what I did. Like, I started with the hardest thing possible. I started with, I had no idea how to use a sewing machine at all. And I started with, I have to make this whole dress from scratch. I have to make, this cape with multiple different types of fabrics connected to each other. I had to make, all this different stuff. I had never worn a wig before. Like, I went super complicated. I actually had to figure out how to make this hat. Hats are probably the hardest thing. Those are one of the things I still have trouble with to this day. I went super complicated at first.
Okay.
But I think the reason I did that is because I just had that vision, you know, that vision for the costume. If it's something you're going to get excited for, I think it doesn't matter if it's simple or if it's complicated. If it's something you're really going to get super excited for, something you really love, I say start with that, you know. And like I said, especially if you're starting out, try to really research.
Do you have to use a sewing machine to make a cosplay?
Not necessarily. There's a lot of people who don't do that. You know, I happen to use the sewing machine because that's what I like to do, and that's what I'm good at. A lot of people, you know, do armor and stuff that has nothing to do with sewing. It's all just like leather working or metal making or whatever. And a lot of people, you know, just go to the thrift store and see what they can find. See what kind of shirt matches with this character. And you'll be surprised how often that works out. I mean, I do that still, just to, I go and I look and I see what I can find. You can cosplay however you want to cosplay. There are definitely no rules. You know, you have fun, and that's pretty much the only rule. And as long as you're having fun dressed up, that's what matters. People are going to see you having fun, and people are going to really like that. So you don't need to necessarily know how to sew. You can just cosplay in whatever you want.
Before that question, I've seen an entire costume just made out of either hot glue or just fabric glue. So you can just do that.
That's true. That Starswirl the bearded costume was made of mostly hot glue.
I used to work at Joanne, and I saw a lot of young people come in getting their costumes ready, and a lot of costumes went together with fabric tack. They didn't know how to sew. They said, how do I put it together? I said, well, there's fabric tack, go down. Simple.
Yep. Lots of little things like that. It's that, you know, that fashion tape that, you know, it's like double-sided sticky tape, but for fabric, and, you know, it's normally used for just emergency little touch-ups, but I've seen, you know, just like cosplays are held together with half safety pins or half hot glue, you know. It's kind of a lifesaver, really. Let's see. I want to say we are pretty much at 3 o'clock. Anybody have any last-minute questions or something?
I didn't get a good look at your costume. Did you show it for us?
All right, let me try to stand up here. My belt's a little crazy, but of course I'm supposed to be Trixie. I had my black cloak on earlier. I really actually had fun making this amulet and coloring this wig, but
Oh, so you colored that. Awesome.
come on. There we go. Here, like in the middle right here.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Makes my day when people do that. But yeah, I actually had fun doing this costume. This was, you know, one of my favorites so far. And coloring this wig, just so, in case you're curious, all I did was take a Sharpie and just color like just a few strands, because the lightest Sharpie I could find was this insanely dark blue. But, you know, I feel like it blended pretty well with the white, especially if you colored kind of just the under part. And I was super impressed with how little effort that took. I thought the wig was going to be such a pain to make for this costume.
Now that you're done with it, you're not the color set, do you think it's going to transfer or fade the whole time, or do you think it's
A lot of people have told me you really want to be careful when you're washing your colored wigs. You really want to put, you know, some kind of finish on it. I really don't plan to use this for anything else, but I was actually thinking for this particular wig, I would color the whole thing blue for another cosplay I was wanting to work on. I'm not really sure what I will do with it, but I really am hoping the color doesn't fade out. If I do end up coloring the whole thing blue, I will definitely try to figure out some way to make it stay, some way to finish it. But since it's just the strands, I mean, it's definitely not rubbing off on my clothes or any of those, you know, things I was scared of. I think if it's just going to be the Trixie wig, I'm going to definitely leave it like this. And I don't think it will. I will definitely get back to you if it does, though. I will let you know. Let's see, what else? Anybody else? Any last minute things, advice, questions, anything?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys had fun listening to me talk about just my cosplay stuff. Hopefully I said something that was helpful to someone.